Hello, my name is Michael, and welcome to Reps2GOG. Today we're going to be exploring what it truly means to be Heartless. Released in September of the year 2002, Kingdom Hearts is what one would call a truly ambitious crossover. A game created by fusing the masterful RPG prowess of Final Fantasy with some of the most iconic and memorable Disney characters. Add a dash of DMCA and you've got yourself a truly unique concoction. The conceit of most crossovers in games up to this point would be something like, what if all the Nintendo characters fought? Or, what if Darth Vader rode a skateboard? Funnily enough, now the Darth Vader thing is a Disney property, so maybe Darth Vader could be in Kingdom Hearts. Very few games up to this point would go so far as to mesh the world so thoroughly and thoughtfully. But how does it even get to this? Well, Square and Disney Japan had apparently shared an office building at the time, so it probably went something like this.
Yeah, buy. Buy those. I need those. I want those. No, sell those. I don't want any of that anymore. Also, by the way, we share a building with Square Enix. We should do something with them. Not you, no. Sell.
Before getting into the meat of the review, I want to talk a little bit about my experience with Kingdom Hearts 2, contextualize how I approached this review, and how I intend to review it thusly. Prior to this writing, I had never really played Kingdom Hearts. I completely skipped it when I was younger, and I really never had that much of an interest in Final Fantasy or Disney growing up. So I never really had an itch to go back and try it out later on in life. To me, this is a boon and a bane from a review standpoint. You really can't rid yourself of the pervasive stink of its iconic status within the video game realm. Unless you've cut out any and all Kingdom Hearts discussion with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, you're at least aware of certain story beats, or even the public reaction to said story beats. When embarking on this review, my mind was mostly untainted by nostalgia, but my heart may as well have been a vicariously charged nostalgia machine. I had a connection to the story that I couldn't even verbalize, and now, having finally played it, I think I can take a crack at letting my thoughts spill out. If you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, you also may be wondering whether or not I'm going to be playing and reviewing the Final Mix version of this game. For those not in the know, Final Mix is a version of Kingdom Hearts that was released in Japan only, about 9 months after its initial release. It had a few gameplay changes and some extra story and game content. I was like, oh man, I'm having so much fun playing Kingdom Hearts. Oh yeah. Oh dude, is that Sora Kingdom Hearts? And it's like, oh well, actually, this is not Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, so it's not like the definitive version of the game. It was actually released in Japan in 2000. This is regarded by most as the definitive version of Kingdom Hearts, but Reps2GOG is a review channel dedicated to North American releases. The way I saw it is anyone with an American PS2 who was playing Kingdom Hearts at the time would have played the original version. Final Mix wouldn't even officially be available for US audiences until September of 2013 on the Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 remix release. In my eyes, the original version is the definitive US version. It's the one everyone played back in the day, and it's the one I'll be reviewing. And lastly, if you've never played Kingdom Hearts, this video will spoil the entirety of the first Kingdom Hearts game. This game is nothing without its story, and to omit it would be, frankly, a giant waste of time. If you'd like to watch a mostly spoiler-free version of this review, I'll have time codes, but I can't promise that there's not going to be any spoilers because there's just so much to cover. I sincerely recommend you experience the game before watching this video. I will, however, be talking about the first 2 small areas of the game in order to introduce the story and the characters outside of those segments. Those will be the Destiny Islands and your first trip to Traverse Town. Now that we're through with the ancillary information, here's the review. What, you thought I could get away with playing the real version on YouTube? Sora is asleep. And who's Sora, you might ask? Well, not the Smash player. He is our spiky-haired JRPG protagonist. And he's sleeping. He's also dreaming. Quite the multitasker, if I do say so myself. Thankfully, Sora's been dreaming about a video game tutorial, so we'll be able to familiarize ourselves with the game's mechanics. You'll be taught how to walk and interact with objects in a pitch-black void, your only walkway being a giant stained glass disc filled with Disney imagery. Almost immediately, you'll be given a choice. In front of you lie 3 pedestals. Atop them lie a sword of terrible destruction, a shield to repel all, and a staff of wonder and ruin. First, you will embrace one, and then you will discard one. This is an abstraction of stat rolls or choices that you would traditionally make in RPGs, and immediately introduces you into the mystique of the world of Kingdom Hearts. The answers that lie within Sora's dreaming heart will manifest themselves into his waking world, which is to say, these directly affect your starting stats. Moving forward, you'll be asked a few questions from some familiar faces if you are familiar with the Final Fantasy series. Selphie, Wakka, and Tidus from Final Fantasy 8 and 10 will ask you a few questions and you will choose one of 3 answers. This choice is interesting because it affects how fast you'll gain experience throughout the game. Depending on how you choose, you'll either have faster XP earlier in the game with slower XP later, slower XP sooner and faster XP later, or flat XP rate throughout the whole game. This one is a little bit dodgier as a stat allocation abstraction in my eyes. You don't really know you're making a decision and you don't know what the outcome is based on character dialogue, so there's no real way to know during your playthrough the effects of this decision. If you didn't know beforehand, it may as well not exist. I didn't know it mattered until after I played through the entire game. Here, you'll also learn the ins and outs of combat. Kingdom Hearts' combat involves using a targeting system that you might expect from another action RPG of its ilk. Most of the complexity of the combat comes from utilizing abilities that you'll acquire later. To start with, all you'll really get is your 3-hit string. Right off the bat, you'll be introduced to the tone and feel of Kingdom Hearts. The bright and colorful Sora flowily and airily defeating these dark creatures whose movement is more like a jittery insect than that of anything that could be considered human. A lone skittle in a sea of raisins and black licorice. Once you finish this combat tutorial, you'll be swallowed by the darkness and awaken on the beach of the Destiny Islands. This is Sora's home. He's lived here for as long as he can remember, with his friends Kairi and Riku, as well as a few other characters from the Final Fantasy series. Kairi finds Sora on the beach and playfully admonishes him for lazing around. While Sora is explaining his dream to her and curiously questioning about where they could have come from, Riku enters the scene and blows Kairi the fuck out by admonishing her for wasting time in the same way that Sora is by idly joining him. Now, at this point, you may be wondering how a few teenagers hanging out on a peaceful island can be procrastinating. I mean, they don't have jobs. Nobody wants to work, am I right? Well, they've been working on a project. They're aware that they weren't born here, they came from somewhere else, but they simply cannot remember a thing about their past lives. They all have this burning desire to find out what's beyond this world. Even if they can't find the world they originally came from, they know that there are other places and want to know what it's like out there. So the gang formulates this plan to build a raft, take some food, and set off into the high seas and experience the world for what it is. I personally love this because it's so emblematic of the simultaneous urgency and half-bakedness that one would expect from a group of teenagers trying to do, well, anything. How can you do anything but root for them with all your heart, as Sora says to Riku, "So what happens if the raft doesn't make it all the way?" And Riku so confidently and solemnly responds, "Well, Sora, we'll figure it out." In a lot of ways, I think the Destiny Islands are an actual manifestation of the fumbling mess that is youth. You're just now becoming a real human person and nothing really matters, but it feels like everything is so important and dire. We have to get this raft built so that we can get the heck out of here. But also we have all this time for little jaunty races and mock fighting. There's even a whole section where Riku is teasing Sora about this pow pow fruit, where if you give it to someone, you'll be together forever. And Riku is like, "Ha, maybe I'll give this to Kairi, JK, haha, unless," and Sora gets really flustered and he wants to give the pow pow fruit to Kairi, sans the JK, haha, unless. Sora even goes as far as to carve himself giving Kairi the pow pow fruit in a cave they used to play in when they were younger. They're meant to be gathering supplies for a grand adventure, but they still have time to spend half of the day fucking around. After collecting all of the components and supplies necessary for the raft adventure, Sora and the gang decide they'll set sail tomorrow. Nothing will stop them from pushing onward and seeing the world. We then get our first cutaway to the Disney side of things. It seems that Mickey Mouse in this world is some sort of medieval king, and he's left a letter to his court wizard Donald. We learn that there's some evil a-brewin', and Mickey has gone to investigate it. He then proceeds to bestow upon Donald, along with his loyal knight Goofy, a mission. They need to find a person wielding a key while he's out investigating the tragedies. Back on the Destiny Islands, we see Sora peacefully sleeping in his room. As if by divine providence, their wishes to rush away from the halcyon days of their youth have been granted. Not by way of boat, but by way of cruel and unfeeling darkness. Sora is awoken to a terrible storm and a deep rumbling. When he goes to investigate, he's assaulted by the black creatures from his dreams. Sora rushes to find Riku and Kairi. He finds Riku in the same place where he had been so lovingly teased about his crush on Kairi, but that childish playfulness is now gone. Riku knows that this is his opportunity. He knows that if he, Kairi, and Sora just embrace this darkness, they can escape this place. This may be their only chance. They must. As darkness begins to swallow Riku, Sora stretches his hand forward to reach his dear friend, and as they're both swallowed by darkness, a spark of light flashes before Sora, and as the darkness recedes from Sora's body, he finds Riku missing, and himself in possession of a new weapon, the Keyblade. Now armed with a weapon to defeat the dark creatures, Sora carves a path back to the place where he and Kairi used to play as kids. Kairi stands in wait, a strange door on her flank. She reaches out to Sora, but the doors burst open and spray a dark torrent forth, pushing Kairi and Sora out of the cave. As Sora is ejected onto the beach, he finds not Kairi, but the giant shadowy creature he fought in his dreams. After defeating the creature, now alone without any of his friends, his entire world that he's known and loved for his entire life falling apart at the seams, Sora is sucked into a giant dark hole in the sky. While Sora was busy getting sucked into a wormhole, Donald and Goofy were hard at work trying to find the key-wielding fellow they've been tasked with locating. Luckily, the target of their mission has fallen into the dark alleyways of Traverse Town. Traverse Town will serve as a central hub for you as you work your way through the many worlds that exist in Kingdom Hearts. Hello and welcome to the Tonal Whiplash Network. Today, we present the sensational No More in Travel blog. Our host Michael will be going over the Gummy vs. Hottest vacation destinations. There will be plenty of familiar Disney and Final Fantasy faces to be seen here as you explore the town. You'll get to meet Huey, Dewey, and Louie, who will act as general shopkeepers, and Sid of Final Fantasy fame, who will tell you to search around and you'll probably find your friends. All of your shopping needs will be met here. The adventurous may find some of the more interesting nooks and crannies as well. Not safe at night, keep your kids close. As you explore more, you are eventually confronted by a tall, mysterious anime man who is very interested in your Keyblade. He proceeds to fight you, and after your victory or defeat, he'll take you back to meet the rest of his crew. Sora wakes up and is greeted by a hallucination of Kairi, telling him that the Keyblade he wields is what's been drawing creatures to him. The creatures want his heart. As he speaks to who he thinks is his childhood friend, it's revealed that he's actually been speaking to Yuffie, a ninja from Final Fantasy VII, and the gunblade wielding character who brought you here was Squall.
That's Leon.
Leon. These two, along with Aerith from Final Fantasy VII, have been working with a man named Ansem to try to discover more about these dark creatures, and what they can do to stop these worlds from being consumed. This is where we finally learn the nature of these creatures, known as the Heartless. They're creatures that are born of darkness and are attracted to the darkness within people's hearts, feeding off of it and multiplying. Normal weapons don't work on them, and the only way to stop the Heartless is with the Keyblade, and the Keyblade has chosen Sora. With this new information, Sora continues pushing through Traverse Town, trying to find his friends when he's attacked by a giant armored Heartless. Donald and Goofy see this happen and they notice that he's wielding the key. They join in and help Sora dispatch the creature before promptly asking Sora to join them on their mission to find the king, assuring him that he could probably find his friends along the way.
But you can't come along looking like that. No problem.
No shot friends. Okay?
Alright, there it is. There's the face. There's the one that every 14-year-old on Twitter is using to post their edgy comments. Jesus Christ, I need a beer. A quaint getaway with an interesting micro-macro twist. Police are a little bit overzealous here, so fun-havers beware. Wonderland has you trying to save Alice, who is being held prisoner by the Queen of Hearts for her crimes against humanity. Her punishment? Off with her head. When Sora intervenes, a scuffle ensues, and Alice is kidnapped by Heartless in the chaos. While exploring Wonderland, you'll chug monster energy and either turn really small or turn back to your normal size. I think the layout of the map can be a bit confusing at times, but that's Wonderland, baby. Thematically, I think it fits well enough, and it was fun to explore the different areas with the shrinking and growing mechanic. The boss, the Trickmaster Heartless, is a bit one note, unfortunately. Since you're tiny when you fight him, you can't really see what he's doing when you're close up, and you have to hit his body, so the fight mostly boils down to jump on chair, jump on table, do one mid-air string on him, and repeat. Kingdom Hearts has a very crisp and controlled feel to its gameplay. To start out with, you'll only have your 3-string attack to work with, which is like, okay, but as you upgrade, you'll have a lot more of a free-flowing combat experience. Whether it be the block, the roll, or the extra hits in your combo, you'll always feel like you're able to act and react to the packs of Heartless that often circle you in fights. You also have the ability to cast a bevy of different spells from the Final Fantasy universe. Each spell will have a normal variant, and then more powerful variants up to the Aga tier. For those who are not Final Fantasy savvy, an example would be Fire, Fyra, and then Fyraga. Each of those 3 would be a more powerful version of the last one. I was actually a bit underwhelmed with the spell casting in Kingdom Hearts. The few spells that were useful felt way too powerful compared to the others. I always felt like things like fire or thunder came out too slow or broke up the flow of combat, and things like gravity and stop had too niche a use or costed too much for it to be worth it in my eyes. Arrow and Cure though. Arrow cuts your damage in half, and Cure cures you. These spells are amazing. See, items you gain are placed in a trunk that is inaccessible during combat. You'll have to fill your character's pockets with consumables beforehand in order to use them while you're fighting. This means that at any given time, your access to potions is limited. All of the menuing between combat to fill your pockets is pretty cumbersome and annoying as well, in my opinion. So basically, your health is at a premium, and being alive longer allows you to deal more damage. This meant that, as a player, I was more inclined to treat potions as a last resort method and to use defensive spells to either mitigate damage or regain lost health. It even got to a point where I was exclusively carrying MP potions that would net me more HP recovery than carrying around the health potions. And I know that that just comes down to personal gameplay and, how you like to play the game, but for me, I just wish it were ever a question in my mind. Like, should I spend mana on Gravira or Curaga? Maybe I should use Stopra to get rid of these guys, or save this for Arrow when things get dicey. Unfortunately, in my mind, it really was never a question. The only time I found myself using offensive spells was when a Heartless was flying away from me and I couldn't reach them with my Keyblade, so I didn't have to wait for them to get back and attack me, so I killed them with the fireball. For the competitive spirits among us, why not try your hand at some good old-fashioned gladiatorial fun? The host may come off as a bit aggressive, but the characters you meet will be well worth the sass. The Olympus Coliseum is no doubt one of the most cherished memories of Kingdom Hearts players. While its premise is pretty cut and dry, it delivers spectacularly. You'll follow this small storyline where Hades is trying to get you killed in the Coliseum and even conscripts a Final Fantasy favorite to fight against you. The coolest part about the Coliseum is coming back later and fighting in different battles. The Cerberus fight at the end of the main Coliseum story is one of my favorites out of the Disney worlds. He's so badass looking, and there are a lot of ways that you could go about fighting him. I thought it was really cool to get up on his back and try to wail away at his heads. There are some solid execution tests, and the fight is challenging enough. Very good. You'll also have your loyal comrades, Donald and Goofy, by your side most of the game. I must stress that this is an action game, not a tactical RPG. You will not have direct control of these characters at any point, and will act solely as Sora throughout the game. You can, however, give them items, gear them, and slightly influence how they will fight alongside you. Basically, you have a selection of options for actions that the party member could do. For example, for Donald, I made it so that he would never use offensive spells and would infrequently use defensive ones. This made it so that he wouldn't waste his MP trying to kill stuff and occasionally throw a heal on me or an arrow on me when I'm low in health. Now you can also give your accomplices items, but this felt a little bit like a crapshoot to me because for some reason the second you give your party members a consumable, they just guzzle them like it's going out of style. You can set an option for them to only use items in emergencies, but unfortunately they tend to find themselves in a frequent state of emergency. They die a lot. That being said, even though they don't do exactly what I want, I kind of love having Donald and Goofy around. They have these battle cries that they'll shout out when certain things happen, and I'll always crack a smile at their frequency. They essentially act as a force of chaos on the battlefield and keep things fresh and interesting, as you never know what's gonna happen. Cramped, repetitive, extreme gun violence. Skip this one if you can. The jungle level may be one of the more meme-worthy levels, but aside from that, I didn't actually like it at all. Basically, Sora and the gang end up meeting Jane, Tarzan, and
Not Clayton.
from Tarzan. Jane thinks this is more of a research trip and
Not Clayton.
believes that this is more of a Dick Cheney type excursion. Basically,
Not Clayton.
is trying to kill the gorillas and Sora and Tarzan try to stop him. The map itself is actually very small, narrow, and boring, which sucks because it has some of the coolest basic enemies in the game, the monkey Heartless. The level is a big circular loop that you're forced to go through over and over again to progress the story of the world, which adds monotony onto an already lackluster level. I guess they also thought like, oh yeah, I guess we need to spice things up a bit. Maybe we'll have the tiger from the movie randomly attack you while you're walking in circles. Yeah, no, it didn't help, sorry. Clayton, the boss of this map, is probably one of the worst boss fights in this game. He's riding a big heartless beast, and while the beast is fighting you in melee, he's sitting up there shooting you with a gun. It was very frustrating to navigate the fight, and I felt like there weren't enough visual cues for the gun attacks. You can also recruit a special Disney character with you to join your party while you're visiting their worlds. While this is really cool, and I would love to have Tarzan join me and help me slay these dark creatures, there is a pretty big oversight in regards to this. You can only use your Disney party members during the time you're in their world, and you can only have 2 party members with you at any given time. Donald and Goofy both have their own experience bars and own experience levels. This means that if you're replacing Donald or Goofy with a Disney character, they're effectively losing out on a whole world's worth of XP. You're giving up permanent XP on a main party member to have a more flavorful experience with you temporarily. I wish they had just tuned these levels for a 4-person party and included the Disney characters as an extra in your party instead of forcing you to choose, because I really would love to have some of these guys around, but the gamer in me says no. And as a good Australian friend can be found frequently stating,
players will optimize the fun out of any game. Just for the record, I didn't actually say this. I'm stealing this quote from some guy from Blizzard. It doesn't matter though, like everyone at Blizzard's like a sex predator.
On the bright side, they often come with a bunch of items in their pockets that you can pilfer from them for your own use. Another problem with these extra characters that you can use is that they inhibit your use of Trinity actions. As you go through the game, you'll come across these little Mickey Mouse shaped Trinity marks. These indicate a space where you can perform a Trinity action with Donald and Goofy. These will net you consumables and items for crafting, and each one will have a color to indicate which Trinity action you're going to need to unlock to do it. You'll get these as you go through the game, so the completionists among us will have a reason to go back to earlier areas and explore. For anyone else, aka me, Trinity marks really aren't that much more than a diversion. In fact, you don't need to craft it all to beat the game. That being said, if you'd like to collect these, you're going to want to have Donald and Goofy with you pretty much all the time because you need them both in your party to activate them. I talked a little bit about crafting in that last section, so I'm going to go ahead and just talk about it a little bit more now. In between worlds, you'll have a chance to do some materia crafting via the Moogles in Traverse Town. In exchange for materias you'll gain from hunting down Trinity marks or killing certain Heartless, you'll be able to craft upgrades for your characters, armor, weapons, and other miscellaneous items. The system is serviceable and gives you a reason to come back to Traverse Town between worlds. I do, however, wish there was a bit more clarity in how it worked. Throughout the entire game, I was working under the assumption that materia crafts available to you would not change at all, because I kept checking back and they were all the same. Little did I know that you had to craft every materia craft available in order to unlock new ones. I'm not sure if I was informed of this in-game and just missed it, and have no way to check, so if I missed it, shame on me, and if it wasn't there, shame on the game. Let me know in the comments. The final system mechanic that I feel the need to explain is the Gummy ship segment, a notorious inclusion, one whose name alone can draw the ire of even the biggest Kingdom Hearts fans. Kingdom Hearts is structured in such a way that you are traveling between multiple Disney-themed planets in order to achieve a goal and then move on to the next. For some reason, someone decided the travel between each of these worlds needs to be gamified. Every time you go to a new world, you'll have to go through a lengthy shoot-'em-up segment. Now, this wouldn't actually be a problem if the Gummy segments were fun, or rewarding, or engaging. You have a health bar and a power meter for weaponry, but nothing ever actually poses a challenge. You could literally just hold down the fire button and not get hit by anything the entire time, and still finish the segment in the same amount of time as somebody who's actually trying to shoot things. There's no sense of danger, there's no urgency. I have no reason as a player to want to engage with this. The enemies that you shoot during these segments will drop items and healing for your ship, but these are never going to be items that you're going to use in the main game. They're items that you attach to the Gummy ship in the customization area. So your reward for engaging with the boring Gummy ship segment is that you can make your ship more powerful so that you can engage with the boring Gummy ship segment more. Just spilled fucking tea everywhere. Speaking of the Gummy ship customization, you can edit your Gummy ship in a fairly in-depth editor. Mostly you'll be using parts that you buy from Sid. While the editor was a bit much to get a grasp on, I eventually did, solely so that I could slap on as many engines and speed boost upgrades as possible so that I could spend less time traveling between worlds. If I could make a singular change to the Gummy ship segments, I would make it so that the enemies drop speed boosts. This extra speed could make it maybe more difficult to hit things, maybe make it easier to be hit, but it would reward adept players by making the level shorter and give players an actual reason to engage with it. Make sure you're dressing for the weather. It may be dry heat, but it burns nonetheless. Explorers and puzzle solvers will enjoy working their way through the bustling and ever-changing markets. Agrabah was cool. All the different Heartless were very interesting looking. I especially thought that the pot spiders were awesome. On Agrabah, Jafar is once again up to his nefarious schemes. He's stolen the genie lamp from Aladdin and taken Jasmine to boot and fled to the Cave of Wonders. The actual entrance to the Cave of Wonders has been possessed by the Heartless, and you get to fight it as a mini-boss. Even though this is what I would consider a spectacle boss, color me enamored by the spectacle. Very fun fight. During your time in the city of Agrabah, you'll find that there's an interesting verticality to the map. The map is also changing layouts as you go back and forth between it and the desert, which I think is pretty cool thematically as it fits the bustling trading city aesthetic. Once you're actually inside the Cave of Wonders, it's a lot of puzzle solving and dangerous traps to avoid. Very Indiana Jones, very cool. The final boss is a heartless, genie-fied version of Jafar. I love the platforming and changing terrain involved in this fight. You'll have to multitask between hitting Lago, who is flying around with the lamp, and paying attention to and dodging Jafar's massive attacks. This was one of the more involved fights and I really enjoyed it. Okay, here it is. This is the spoiler section. Here's where I spoil the entire plot. This is your warning. Play the game, or live with the ghosts of what could have been. Are you ready? Okay. Where we last left off, Sora was taking off from Traverse Town with Donald and Goofy to go find King Mickey and help him with his mission. There are a few things that I left out from these sections, and I will reveal them now. First, on Destiny Islands, as Sora is etching the Pow Pow fruit on the wall, he encounters a hooded figure, shrouded in darkness. This figure is in stark contrast to Sora in every way. Muted dull blacks against Sora's vibrant colors, a storied and knowing pessimism versus Sora's blind and youthful optimism. In one single interaction, Kingdom Hearts has laid its themes bare. While this is a story about light and darkness, Kingdom Hearts quantifies these things with feelings and emotional strength. These are not just thoughts and opinions, they are tangible forces within the universe and can grant immense power or ultimate ruin. Second, in Traverse Town, as Sora dispatches the armored Heartless, there is a cutaway to a shadowy cabal of Disney villains, spearheaded by Maleficent from Maleficent. They pontificate towards Sora and his power and wonder if he'll be able to destroy the darkness or if he'll be consumed by it. This scene lays out our antagonists. Smelly, samey, easy to get lost in. Not much to see here. I did not like Monstro. As you travel through the last worlds, you'll end up getting swallowed whole by a giant whale named Monstro. Here you'll meet Pinocchio and Geppetto, who have also been swallowed whole. Riku shows up and wants Pinocchio's heart, so you'll have to chase Riku around the innards of this giant beast. Monstro's innards are filled with tight corridors and a very samey design. It's like, oh, have I been down this ravine before? Oh no, I need to go through this flesh door. Wait, no, that flesh door. Luckily, this is a pretty small level, so it's not too bad in the grand scheme of things. The final boss, the parasite cage, looks pretty cool, but the fight itself is really not that interesting. It's just a lot of jumping to hit his head, and his attacks will rarely hit you if you're doing this. Undersea Adventure. Very nice to look at. Very unfun to navigate and explore. Ah, underwater levels. Somebody should do a video essay on this topic. Basically, in this world, Ariel from The Little Mermaid is convinced by Ursula to steal Triton's trident, which she then uses to injure Triton. Sora helps defeat Ursula, and in return, Triton shows Sora where the keyhole to the world is. The extra axis of movement in this level is very frustrating. At the end of the day, Sora still has to align with the enemies to hit them with his Keyblade. Kingdom Hearts ends up losing some of that free flowiness in the combat by forcing you to take time to swim up and down to each enemy as they come at you from each direction. The world itself looks great and there's some genuinely cool parts, but I feel like they had a good formula with the movement and the underwater aspect messes with it too much. The final boss, Ursula, is actually pretty cool. You've got these eels who are trying to hit you constantly and you have to juggle between stunning them to keep them off of you and fighting Ursula. She's got a cauldron in the middle where if you shoot magic into it, it will overload and stun everyone to get some good damage in. In her second form, she does a lot more attacks by herself and has an attack that if you don't swim away from it, it'll do massive damage to you. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of the movement in this area, I actually really enjoyed this boss fight and really enjoyed the hecticness of its first phase. Great aesthetic, great characters, fun platforming. The graveyards make for a great mid-October jaunt. Halloween Town is awesome. It has one of my favorite Sora outfits and has some of my favorite characters in it. I love Jack Skellington so much, please marry me. I just love the Halloween Town aesthetic. It's super dark and goofy. Jack Skellington is trying to create an artificial heart that will allow him to control the Heartless, as they've been becoming a problem and he feels like he could use them during the festivities. As you go around collecting different emotions to use in the creation of this artificial heart, Oogie Boogie's minions have been watching you. As you complete the artificial heart, the little fuckers steal the heart and take it back to Oogie, who you will chase to get it back. You'll first fight Oogie in a weird roulette fight. This is the type of gimmick boss that I'm not a huge fan of. He just throws bombs on the roulette wheel and you have to dodge them, and then you get an opportunity to hit him for an amount of time until he throws bombs again. I'm not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm playing Kingdom Hearts. The combat being turn-based is not fun. Oogie's second form is he turns into a building and you have to climb him and hit these orbs that he has around his body. It's less of a boss fight and more of a bonus level. Cramped. Hard to see anything. Once you're above deck, you can fly around, but the flying gimmick feels just about as bad as swimming in Atlantis. You know, this world is called Neverland, but it should really just be called Captain Hook's boat. Sora gets imprisoned on this boat, but his cellmate happens to be Peter Pan. They escape their holding and explore the ship looking for Wendy and Kairi, who had apparently been there. This level was one of the most claustrophobic levels in the game, and whoo boy does that not bode well for it. It is almost impossible to see what you're doing, where you're moving, and the cherry on top, there's hatches on the floors and ceilings. I found myself trying to go through areas and just randomly falling into a room I'd already been in. There's a mini boss who is a heartless version of Sora who you fight in the captain's quarters. This would have been a really cool fight, but it's set in such a tiny area that you barely have any room to maneuver around, so it just becomes frustrating instead. As you reach the top deck, you'll be taught how to fly by Peter, and you'll get to fight Captain Hook. To be honest, he doesn't really put too much of a fight up and isn't that interesting at all. You have to fly around and kill these tiny ship Heartless that spawn around you, but like, it's not like he can follow you or anything, so you just take take care of the ads, and then you fight him on the ground. It doesn't utilize the flying mechanic you just got, which is unique to this map, might I add, and he really doesn't do anything interesting moveset wise. As we work our way through the different Disney worlds, we slowly find a few things out. Firstly, that each world has a keyhole that needs to be found and sealed in order to stop the Heartless from pouring in, and secondly, we find out that the Disney princesses that inhabit these worlds are something called Princesses of Heart. Basically, these 7 princesses, when gathered together, have the ability to open a keyhole to the Kingdom Heart, which they believe will allow them to gain access to an immeasurable amount of darkness that they can bend to their will. They believe that they can wield this darkness in order to completely dominate the universe. At some point, Maleficent and crew find Riku and recognize they can probably use him. They promise that they'll help him find Kairi if he helps them out, and of course Riku, being the type of guy that will take the most straightforward path toward his goals, accepts. His love for his friends is only surpassed by the lengths he would travel to help them. As Sora travels through the Disney worlds, we find out that the true danger of this darkness is not the command it affords to its wielders, but its terrifying ability to completely consume those who cannot command absolute control over both it and their emotions. One by one, we see these Disney villains slip, losing themselves to the tantalizing allure of the darkness, desperately grasping for salvation when only ruin can exist, and becoming no better than the mindless Heartless that they once commanded. Maleficent recognizes this as she watches her compatriots fall one by one to the darkness, and does the 2 most logical things I can imagine. First, she attempts to get Riku to open his heart further to darkness by tricking him into believing that Sora was abandoning him, and second, she says to herself, yeah, they all sucked. Surely that won't happen to me. I guess spending all your time on an island and only really befriending a few other people really closes your mind to the idea of your besties having other friends. Riku becomes both jealous at Sora for having made good friends with Donald and Goofy, and also enraged because he feels Sora is not taking the task of finding Kairi seriously enough. Riku believes that if Sora hadn't wasted all this time goofing off with his new little friends, he would have found Kairi faster, and they'd be able to help her together. This leads to Riku confronting Sora multiple times as he makes his way towards the castle world where the Princesses of Destiny, as well as Kairi, are being held, the Hollow Bastion. Sweet castle to explore from the bottom to the top. You'll love the aesthetic, and make sure you stop by the library as there's a ton of interesting information there. Hollow Bastion is easily one of the biggest maps in the game, and it's not for nothing either. This is where all the Princesses of Heart have been gathered in order to try to open the final keyhole. The castle is huge, dour, and labyrinthine, and you'll have to make your way through it from toe to tip. Sora, without his Keyblade, is assisted by the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, who is trying to rescue his Belle. This section is super fun, as you go around basically unable to defend yourself, solving puzzles and making your way through the depths of Hollow Bastion's sewers. Beast tags along, busting through walls and walloping Heartless in your stead. Once you're in fighting condition again, you'll end up going toe to toe with Maleficent. In her first phase, she's standing on a platform casting giant magical energy balls at you, forcing you to retreat below, while the Heartless that await below the platform threaten to overwhelm if you stay down there too long. The second phase of the Maleficent fight will really test your awareness and abilities. She transforms into a dragon and starts stomping and shooting fire all over the place. There's tons of AoE in this fight, and you have to be really careful when going to attack because the same face that you're hitting is the one that's shooting green fire at you. The ground isn't safe either, since her stomps put forth a salvo of shockwaves. This fight is awesome and will test you on everything you've learned from the boss fights leading up to it. I thought it was phenomenal. In the interest of keeping things short, you do also fight Riku in the Hollow Bastion, but I'll just say this. All of the anime sword fights in this game are fun and good, and you'll have to take my word on that. We find out that Kairi is in a catatonic state and cannot be awoken no matter how hard Riku tries. When Sora arrives, he stands off against Riku, only for Riku to yoink his Keyblade and tell him that he's not worthy. Goofy and Donald's original mission was to follow the wielder of the Keyblade, so they begrudgingly join Riku's side. Even without his Keyblade, Sora pushes onward, determined to help his friends and save Kairi. Sora confronts Riku, stating he doesn't need the Keyblade.
I know now I don't need the Keyblade. I've got a better weapon. My heart!
This is enough to get Donald and Goofy to rejoin him, and ironically enough, the Keyblade returns to him. Riku runs off, knowing he won't be able to defeat Sora like this, leaving Maleficent to the task of defeating the trio. Riku then meets with the hooded man from the beginning of the game, who implores him to open his heart completely to darkness if he wants to save Kairi. When Sora next meets Riku, something is different. Riku has been possessed by the hooded figure, who introduces himself as Ansem. He leads Sora to Kairi's unmoving body, explaining to them that she is one of the 7 princesses of heart, but they haven't been able to open the final keyhole because on the Destiny Islands, Kairi's heart got stuck inside of Sora's body. He fights and defeats Ansem, but there's a bigger problem. The keyhole is unfinished and cannot be fully opened or sealed until Kairi's heart is returned, which means Heartless will continue to spew forth until it's sealed. Ansem, however, had a solution.
Kairi's inside me?
He wielded the aptly named Keyblade of Hearts, which allowed him to unlock people's hearts, which allows darkness to consume them. Sora stabs himself with Ansem's Keyblade in order to free Kairi's heart. Turning himself into a Heartless in the process. We then get this really cool sequence where we get to play as Heartless Sora. He seems to still have some control over his actions and wants to find Kairi. When he finally makes his way to Donald, Goofy, and Kairi, she recognizes him, embraces him, and through the immense light within her heart is able to make him human again. Sora and gang make their way back to the top of Hollow Bastion and are finally able to seal the final keyhole, stemming the flow of the Heartless. The only thing left to do is follow Ansem to the end of the world and defeat him in order to restore the worlds that have been consumed by darkness already.
He sought a way to cross over into other worlds, and he opened his heart to darkness.
Riku!
Don't bother. Your voice can no longer reach him where he is. His heart belongs again to darkness.
As Sora confronts Ansem, Ansem explains that he believes that since all hearts begin and end in darkness, the true essence of a heart is darkness. Sora disagrees, stating that he believes that even in our darkest, weakest moments, there's still a glimmer of light to be found.
Look as hard as you are able. You'll not find even the smallest glimmer of light. From those dark depths are all hearts born, even yours. Darkness conquers all worlds!
After being defeated multiple times, Ansem, in a last-ditch effort, opens the door to darkness, beckoning the Kingdom Hearts, believing it will fill him with immeasurable darkness and allow him to defeat Sora. To his dismay, the Kingdom Hearts is revealed to be an overflowing source of light hidden in the world of darkness. The light obliterates Ansem, but the door to darkness remains open and will also allow innumerable Heartless to spill into creation.
I can't.
Don't give up! Come on, Sora! Together we can do it!
Okay.
It's Heartless! Your Majesty!
This is when we finally see King Mickey and Riku on the other side of the door. They help Sora close the door to darkness, assuring him that they'll be able to find a way out later. Kairi appears as the worlds that were consumed by darkness begin reforming and returning to normal. Sora promises that he'll find a way for everyone to be together again, as Kairi gets sucked back to the Destiny Islands in a DMCA montage, leaving Sora, Goofy, and Donald to find their way back to Mickey, Kairi, and Riku. This entire story is a celebration of the lifelike light that everybody holds within them at some point in their life, knowing that even though darkness will likely always exist and things won't always be perfect, that if you hold on to that light, you'll be able to shine brightly enough that you can illuminate those around you and perhaps even combat some of the darkness in the world. All of the characters who would lose themselves to darkness were passionate people who at some point became willing to throw away the very thing that made them human in order to achieve their goals, and and at that point, they became something other than human. However, what sets them apart from someone like Riku or Sora, who did let darkness into their hearts, is that the Disney villains didn't have anyone to call a friend, no one to lend them that light when they needed it the most. From a purely thematic and storyline perspective, I believe Kingdom Hearts is an amazing game. Even a cynical asshole like me couldn't help but feel a certain glee during the game's emotional highs. However, a story does not a video game make. There are just one too many irritating levels, and gameplay mechanics are just one layer of complexity too few. I do believe that Kingdom Hearts is a game that should be played at least once, but am I saying that because I really think it's a good video game, or am I saying that because it's a landmark crossover of beloved characters with a heartwarming and sincerely complex storyline? I lean towards believing the latter. Thank you for watching.